Hey everybody, welcome to the Tuesday Q&A. I'm shooting this from my phone today because, of course, 5 seconds before you're ready to go live, your computer decides it does not want to cooperate in absolutely any way at all. So while my laptop is doing its thing, I decided I'd just pop in here on my phone and we can start off our Q&A with what's your favorite beverage? So for those of you who know me really well, you know I'm addicted to unsweet iced tea. I went through the drive-through my way back from a trip over to the office today and got myself an unsweet tea. So everybody's got a passion for something, that drink they can't live without. While it should be water for everybody, it usually is not. So mine is unsweet tea. I can drink it all year round. Today it's like summertime here, so it's kind of perfect for that. But for the most part, you know, I drink it all morning, all night. I love it. So anyway, we're jumping into Q&A as a follow-up to my series on steering your business through COVID-19 and all of the legislation that has come out in the last few weeks and all of the things that people are wondering about as far as their business and how the legislation affects them and collecting unemployment and who can collect, who needs to get sick pay. There is just so much information out there. And I will start this again with reminding you to get your information from a reliable, credible source. And for us, that is going to the people who are dictating the policy. And I know that for people who are not in the industry of looking at tax code or regulations or the legalese of all of this, it can get overwhelming when you get onto some of those sites. So we're doing a little bit of that for you. I check these sites multiple times a day. Sometimes I have to limit it, but definitely, you know, before I get on any of these calls and before I answer questions, I'm looking for the updates. So some of those sites that you should be bookmarking at this point, because they do come up with the frequently asked questions, which summarizes all of that legal jargon for you, and they are updating them regularly. So Department of Labor, which is dol.gov, the Department of the Treasury, that is where all of the PPP loan guidance is coming from. The Department of Labor is all of the unemployment rules that are coming out, the sick leave, there's lots of Q&A on that. IRS.gov, they, bless their hearts, they have had a Corona page for several weeks, and yesterday they decided that the page itself should be revised. So where I was going to find all of the information has now changed, and I had to go find, what I was looking for again. But IRS.gov has its own Corona relief page that has the information for individuals, for the tax deadline being changed, for the economic impact payments that are due to come out, for how to handle sick leave and things for relating to paying your people and how to get that tax credit. So IRS.gov, and then the Missouri unemployment website or any state unemployment website that you are needing to get information from. So all of those websites are being updated regularly, and I tell you to go there rather than your local news broadcast, Facebook, news stories, and everybody's going to have their own sources that they go to and feeds that they watch. But when you're looking for the actual facts, I would suggest please go to the sources. And then sometimes you may just need to wait for them to actually come out with those summaries and those FAQs, and put a bookmark out there for now if you need to, so that you can go back to those. And like I said, I'm trying to keep up with them. Hot news today. The question I have been having for the last couple of weeks is relating to my self-employed persons and the fact that they are going to be entitled to get unemployment. And this is kind of an unprecedented event. Typically, if you're self-employed, you have never been entitled to unemployment, as it was a criteria of who determines if you're unemployed or not. So you get paid by people as an independent contractor. So the fact that you didn't line up your next job typically is not something that warrants you having unemployment. So the CARES Act came out that unemployment will be available to self-employed persons. The question I've been getting is, when can I apply? How do I apply? What numbers do I use? It's been very quiet on that front. Earlier this week, it was the state unemployment, Missouri, said there should be guidance coming out this week. I dug today and did get some information off of the Department of Labor's website that is still very raw. It is not in that easy to read, frequently asked questions, layman's terms, but what it looks like is that I believe it will use your prior year tax return, so your 2019 numbers, and it will base your what you're eligible to be getting is going to be based off of your net income from 2019. So if you're a sole proprietor who files a Schedule C with your 1040, you'll be looking at that net income number off of that schedule. This is, again, completely raw data at this point, and there will be some caveats to that. There was some discussion in the rules as far as if you were to get paid during that time, how does that affect the amount you'll be getting? And essentially the answer there is that amount will need to come off of how much you're getting from unemployment. The state does not have this guidance into a form or an application as far as I know yet. So I keep having the question of when can I apply? How do I apply? All of the unemployment applications, whether it's for someone who has lost their job or a self-employed person who no longer has any work, that their work is pretty much dried up due to the current circumstances, that's all done online through your state unemployment. It's backed up. The system crashes. It's not easy. Missouri is still stating they are waiting for guidance and they expect it this week. And I don't know if that means the actual website will be available for self-employed persons to put those numbers in. I would tell you, if you haven't filed your 2019 return yet and you are self-employed, you are probably going to want to try to get that filed. Reminder that there is no taxes due until July 15th. So even if you haven't paid your taxes, that's okay. We can still file it. At least get that Schedule C done. They're going to want something to support that number. In addition, the guidance is still pending from the Department of Labor, the Department of Treasury, relating to the paycheck protection loans and how that applies to a self-employed person and what number they are going to be looking at for that. There's no guidance yet, but supposedly those applications should be able to be started on Friday. So I'm hoping that the guidance comes out before Friday, unlike the guidance that came out for the traditional organization that has employees last week that opened, and they are still coming out with the guidance on how to do it. So hopefully we will get some guidance and I'll be able to share that with you on Friday in my webinar. But what I would tell you for now is unemployment, that number is coming. It's that information is coming. They have put some information on what self-employed numbers are going to look like, and the initial answer is your net income. There's been some question, well, do I get to do my gross? No, it's going to be based on net. What does that mean if you had a loss last year? Don't know yet. That means you didn't really make any money, so what do they base it on? I do know that you will be eligible for the $600 extra a week, and the most updated information I have on that is that $600 should be coming out as soon as the week of April 12th, so that's next week, next Monday, is when they're saying that if you've applied, if you are eligible for at least $1 of unemployment, you are eligible for the extra $600 a week, and you are also eligible for the extended amount of time on the unemployment if it is needed. So that's coming. It is also going to be retroactive to people who put in unemployment applications prior, I want to say March 29th, might be a little bit sooner than that. So just be aware that stuff is coming. It's taking a little while. Quick update on the economic impact payment, otherwise known, we all think of it as the stimulus check. When the IRS redid their website over the last 2 days and they updated that page, the information about the economic impact payments that are designed to stimulate the economy has updated, and all referral to any of the portal being created for you to put in your direct deposit information, there's nothing relating to that now. So I don't know if they're backing off on creating that portal, and I would suspect that they may be. Typically, if you're setting up any type of access into the IRS website, it is a multi-week process of waiting for them to mail you confirmation and a PIN that you can then go in and use within a certain amount of time to set up this account. So I'm guessing they may be running into some security issues as far as whether or not they really want to get this set up. What they have put in place instead, and which I had read and heard about, was that they will be sending a letter within 15 days of the payment going out, and that will tell you how they sent the payment. They will use your last mailing address on whatever the last return was that you filed in 2018 or 2019. If you haven't filed 2018 and have a filing requirement, you need to go ahead and get your 2018 return filed. If you're expecting a refund on that, then you should go ahead and have it direct deposited. And so that way they have your direct deposit information on your most recent return, and they can use that to send the check. So they won't send a check, they'll send it to your bank. If you don't have a direct deposit information in your tax return most recently filed because you owed, then you will end up getting a check. You also, and everybody is supposed to be getting a letter saying when they sent your payment so that you can follow up if you don't get it. Issues I can see is if you've changed bank accounts and so you had a bank account be closed. The other issue is if you moved. So the last address that you used on your tax return and you've moved since then. If it's a 2019 return, you're probably still getting a forwarding order and you're fine. But if the last return you filed was 2018 and it's already been more than 12 months, you may run into an issue that you may not get the check. The other issue is they're going to use a bad address to send the letter and the check. So that being said, that's what's happening there. There's also, they put some guidance out on so right now the limits are adjusted gross income for let me just look right now. It's I believe it's $75,000 for a single person. It is $150,000 for married. And now they have also given some guidance because it was not listed before. Was head of household, your adjusted gross income is $112,500. So if you have more than $112,500 and you are head of household, then it will start to be your economic impact payment will start to be phased out. And I believe it phases out at once you get over $136,500, I think. So those limits are now out there. Everyone else is looking at $1,200 per adult listed on the tax return as far as taxpayer or spouse. Adult children who are still students and are over the age of 17 are not getting any, you're not getting any money for them. Children under 17 listed as your dependent, $500 per child. And those are going to be based on, if you have your 2018 return filed, it will be those 2018 ages. 2019 will be those 2019 kids. So if you had kids in 2019 and haven't filed a return yet, you're not going to get that money in this check. However, you will most likely get it when you file your 2020 tax return. They will do a method of essentially accounting for all of this money. And if you filed your 2019 return and you should have had a child and you only got $1,200 or $2,400 for the grown-ups, they should be able to essentially give you that money at the time you file that 2020 return. So that's the update on that. Kind of, like I said, for the unemployment and the self-employed people, that is a huge question. I would say keep watching the Missouri unemployment website. Keep looking for that information. I believe as of last week, There was nothing indicating anything about self-employed questions. So I don't know if it's going to be set up as a separate application, if it's going to be the same application. I'm guessing they're going to have some direction because they've not had self-employed persons applying for unemployment in the past. Okay, so now we're going to jump into some questions that have come up in last week's webinar and also since last week's webinar that people have emailed me or asked me. And what this is doing is just kind of going back through the legislation and the different questions that businesses and individuals are having relating to this new legislation. So I just I got a lot of questions answered last week, but I didn't get everything. And I'm just going to start with one of the questions is, so you remember that $10,000 for the EIDL loans from the SBA? That is, I never remember what the EIDL stands for, Economic Something Disaster Loan. So anyway, EIDLs, there was an application available for you to put in for this disaster relief. Every state in the United States is considered in this disaster zone, so everybody can apply. This was essentially saying you need some money because of the disaster, and what I've been telling everybody is eventually all businesses are going to need the cash in some way. It may not be now, it may not be for another week or so, might not be another month or so, but it's going to trickle down. Our economy is kind of grinding to a halt, and it is not going to come back to the numbers it was immediately. So I'm recommending to my clients that yes, you apply for things that are available to you. If you don't get it and you don't need it right away, there's going to be other sources, I do believe, but still you want to apply. So what happened was they opened this EIDL, people started applying for it, and then they rapidly changed it to there's going to be a $10,000 immediate sourced income or source to you that doesn't have to be paid back. I believe that if it is, since it's forgiven, in this case, it's going to become income to you. So a bunch of people, and I did it for my businesses last week on Monday. Nobody's heard anything. It's been crickets. You got a confirmation number that it said to save, and that was it. I've heard some people called and were able to, yes, confirm that their application was received and it was being processed. But until today, I saw nothing that anybody had received any money. It indicated that you'll get an email, and once you get the email, you'll get your $10,000 in 3 days. Here we are. I'm a week and a half later. I've never seen an email. But I did see on one of the groups that I follow in Facebook that is a lot of QuickBooks and accountants and those types of people and from reliable people, they post, hey, anybody heard anything? One did say that, yes, they had a client, they got the email, and it essentially said they were approved and they will have the $10,000 within 3 business days. There's still more to that after that. You will be actually applying for a loan with them with a low interest rate, and I believe it's a question of is 10 years or 30-year payback term, but the money is coming. What I also saw, somebody posted that if you have a confirmation number that started with a 2, that potentially you did the long form application prior to them having the quick form, that for those of us who did it last week, it was 15 minutes. It wanted very little information, but it did want your bank account information and do you want to be considered for that $10,000? The original application did not have that. So it said if your number started with a 2, that you probably need to go back and reapply with the quick application. If it started with a 3, you're golden. So mine started with a 3, so I'm just going to wait. I'm hoping to see an email maybe in the next couple of days. And, that for me, that is fine. I mean, but for others, that 3-day window is really, really important. I've already had some clients that they've been shut down due to the stay-at-home order. They were a non-essential business. They've been trying to, shift some things to the website, their retail location. So they are, already had to lay people off. So getting that cash in hand very quickly is very, very important to some businesses that are out there. I mean, you really, it becomes very important. I would say, somebody asked, self-employed persons, should you apply for the EIDL? Yes, you should. Keep in mind, it's a loan. It will go through an approval process. There's no personal guarantees, I believe, on this one, and you will have to pay it back. This is not 100% forgiven. So if you don't want to, if you don't think you're going to have the funds to begin paying it back, even with the 6-month window, where they're not going to start collecting on that for at least 6 months, then don't apply for it. To get the free $10,000, you do have to apply for the loan. And if you get the loan, you're going to have to pay the loan back. There's supposed to be no prepayment penalties. So if you get the loan, you want to give it back, you can. But I don't want to encourage everybody to apply for the loans unless, one, you need them, and two, you understand you have to pay them back. You have to have the cash flow to pay them back. These are low interest, and so that's nice. It's probably better situation than going into credit card debt. So. But again, it's a process, and they're looking at funding after you get the approval, which would be an email. Then you should be getting your $10,000 within 3 days, and then there's probably still another at least 2 weeks. I would say possibly longer because of the volume to get approved for the up to $2 million you'd be entitled to. There's going to be a formula. You don't have to take the maximum. You can take portions, whatever. But you definitely want to make sure that you are getting if you're self-employed and feel like you need to take out a loan, then yes, this is what you could do. But the good news is somebody is getting approved. I will say, make sure you check your junk mail in your email. And that you check your email if you aren't typically on email very often. Check it regularly because you don't know what's in there right now. It could be that you finally got the information you're waiting for from the SBA. But definitely check your junk mail because it could be sitting out there, your junk mail, your spam. There are lots and lots of scams and offers and things happening right now. And so there's a lot of junk. If you applied, you got a confirmation number of at least of a 3, it starts with a 3, then you want to make sure that you are definitely checking your email to see when that comes. Like I said, the person that said the person got theirs, they said they applied last Monday. So it's starting to trickle. Okay. Question that came up last week about the Paycheck Protection Program loans and how that applies to the FFCRA, which is the Family First Coronavirus, whatever, what I call it the sick pay / Expanded Family Medical Leave Act. So how is that? So the Paycheck Protection loans were designed to have a forgiveness portion to them for expenses spent in the first 8 weeks. And the qualified expenses there are payroll, and then they're saying rent or mortgage on your building, utilities, and health insurance, payroll related expenses. Seems like there might have been, no, that's pretty much it. And there's a portion of forgiveness there. However, with the FFCRA rules with the sick leave, you are able to credit your payroll taxes for the amount you are required to pay in the sick leave and the expanded medical leave. So that is excluded from also being considered payroll costs that you used the Paycheck Protection money for. So that came up last week. I wasn't sure. Since then, it's definitely been clarified. Any monies that have been essentially you have been credited on your payroll taxes for the sick leave or the family medical leave, those are not a portion of forgivable expense for when it comes to the Paycheck Protection loans. So that has been clarified. What's going to happen as far as getting the forgiveness on those loans? So it's yet to be seen. So I don't know anybody who's received any money from the Paycheck Protection loans. that application started last Friday. It was a little bit of a free-for-all. It was a little bit of it wasn't pretty. And since then, I've had at least one bank come back with, hey, I got all your applications, but now we're required to have your NAICS code, which is essentially your standardized code for what type of business you are. It tells you if you're a retail clothing store, or if you're an automotive service place, or what type of business you are, and that's listed on your tax return, and required to be listed on your tax return. And then also it wanted the start date of the organization. And so they came back and had to get all that information on all of those loans because those weren't originally asked for. So that means none of that bank hasn't funded anything yet. My bank isn't even answering the phone. So it said, email here and we'll start the process. And I emailed on Saturday and now it's Wednesday and I haven't heard a thing. So it's all over the place. There are, portals that have crashed. Has been follow-up information that was totally irrelevant. I had one bank asking for, how'd you use your proceeds? How can you ask the question, haven't even gotten any proceeds? So they were wanting you to essentially 100% account for the fact that you're going to take this proceeds and use it towards forgivable expenses. So just as a clarification on the forgiveness portion, so it's designed to save payroll, which means that it expects you to either rehire people or retain the people that are on your payroll so that your payroll numbers do not drop as compared to the same time period last year, which I believe they're looking at March through June or something. And then the money, they're encouraging you to spend it on payroll for the next 8 weeks. Spend it on payroll, and we'll forgive some of it. Spend it on rent, spend it on utilities, spend it on things that you had in place before February 15th. You can't suddenly go out and lease a building. You can't suddenly go say, ooh, I want to add this utility that I didn't have. It has to be in place February 15th or earlier. But the deal is, if they gave you 100% of the money and you used it for an expense that was not forgivable, it just means you got to pay the loan back. So I've seen some discussions on, hey, if I get this loan, should I open up a new bank account just to track how I spent the money? No, gosh, no. Hopefully you have an accounting system or a bookkeeper or an accountant like me who is keeping track of how you're spending your money. The banks are going to, once they've approved the loan, they have to send you a disbursement from the loan within 10 days. Once you have received that money, anything spent for the next 8 weeks that is a qualifying expense will be eligible for forgiveness as long as at least 75% of that is payroll costs. So that's the caveat. Some people are like, yeah, I don't think I can come up with that. Okay, well, do you still need the money? That just means you're going to have to pay back more of the loan. It doesn't mean you shouldn't get it, but I will tell you that if, think about the terms of the loan. Could it be free money? Yes. Can you meet the requirements of it being free money? No. Is it worth the hassle of trying to go through and get it? I don't know. For people who have weekly payrolls, you're going to get to that 75% very quickly. 8 weeks worth of payroll is fast. I did have a question last week of, should we accelerate a pay date in order to fit into that 8 weeks? Maybe. That definitely would be a maybe. That would also, to me, be a, you're getting close to that 8 weeks and rent's going to be due in 2 weeks. Do you prepay it? Yeah. Doesn't mean cut the check and hold on to it. It means you better make sure that you cut the check, get it to them, and it's cleared the bank so that you can include this in the costs. I will guess there is definitely going to be guidance. The banks have to get through the approval process, and then they're going to have to very quickly develop some forgiveness process, and they'll be waiting for guidance. But because they had a week to get ready for this, 1 week, they will have essentially, I would say, give them 6 weeks. Even if they could have 6 weeks to get ready for the forgiveness portion of this. Wouldn't that be awesome? They've already given the guidelines of what the expenses are that are going to be entitled. Mortgage if you own your building, rent if you rent your building, utilities, payroll costs, health insurance premiums, all of those things. And that's what they're saying are forgivable. So they're just going to need to come up with one spreadsheet. I've seen so many spreadsheets on how to calculate the Paycheck Protection payroll costs number. And we came up with our own as well. And luckily, when they finally came out with the guidance from the Treasury, it was pretty spot on. I was very, very happy. I was glad we interpreted it correctly. But it's not easy, and everybody's coming up with their own methodology. And that's unfortunate that they released the program with 1 week. 1 week from the time it was passed to the time they were accepting applications was not enough. Clearly, it was not enough. So they've had another week to kind of implement the self-employed portion of this, but they've been so busy trying to clean up the regular portion of it, we may not get good guidance on that either. And this time next week, we'll be in the same boat trying to figure out what they wanted for the self-employed persons. So I kind of wish they would have spent a little bit more time putting the process in place, thinking it through, because I have a feeling there's going to be an oh crap moment when they're like, we didn't think of this. And somebody out there is going to take advantage of this system that's going to hurt all of us. What I have not heard, and it is Wednesday, the doom and gloom of all the money's going to run out last Friday, I haven't heard it. I haven't seen it. I haven't. And again, I stay away from the news media. I'm not glued to it in the morning. I am not glued to it at night. I'm not listening to it during the day. I am going only to my sites that I need to go to. So the media may be saying the money's running out, but I can definitely tell you it can't run out yet. Nobody's gotten any money. So just bear with it. Okay, let's see. So I think I addressed the should you change your pay dates on your payroll. If you get the loan, maybe, for sure. So there was a question. Somebody has an existing SBA loan on one of their entities, and effective April 1st, SBA stopped actually taking payments. So they've suspended those for at least, I believe, 6 months. The question is, do I have to pay that back? Yeah. Yeah. So they aren't forgiving it. They are not making, they're essentially tacking time on to the end of your loan. So they're going to wait till the economy picks up a little bit and give you some time to recover from this situation, and then they're going to start taking their money again. And my guess is, and they'll just add 6 months on to the back end of the loan. They're just doing it to have, money freed up to keep your people, pay your vendors, do, whatever they can do. So in conjunction with that, the IRS has suspended any collection efforts. They are, if you had an installment agreement, you can opt to stop paying that right now. You can, if you had a date where you said, hey, I'm going to have this paid by, and it's during this time period, you are it's free right now. You shouldn't be getting any collection letters. You shouldn't be getting any threats of liens. You shouldn't, if some things were already in their automated system, there's a good chance that those are going to go ahead and you're going to get those. But no, they're not following through with that. They have suspended that. Okay, so what else did we have? Let's see. So one of the questions I had was, do you have to get in touch with your bank do you mandatorily have to make sure that some of this is forgiven on this loan? I don't think so, although I'm not sure how the whole formula for how the banks are going to be paid is happening, that if it benefits them to have it forgiven, they may be hounding you to make sure that after your 8 weeks, you're providing the documentation you need to support the forgivable expenses. Most people would say, yeah, let me get the forgiven part. But I could see situations where someone would be like, okay, well, I'm going to get this 1% loan that's payable over 18 months, and that's way cheaper than paying my 25% interest on my credit card. That's not an expense that's allowed to be forgiven, but it does, in effect, kind of refinance your debt. Is that going to happen? Possibly. Are they going to have any way of stopping it? No. The caveats are essentially you can't be behind on your child support in order to get one, and you can't use it for illegal activity. And you need to be impacted by Corona. And like I said, I think every business is going to be impacted in some way, some much more quickly and much more drastically than others. And then there's going to be some that it's going to be a trickle effect. I feel like my business, it's going to be a little bit more of a trickle effect. We're impacted by the fact that the deadline got moved. So April's a pretty big revenue deadline, revenue generator for us. And now that they've extended it for 3 months, okay, so that means there's going to be people who typically we would be preparing returns for this week that aren't even going to bring them in yet. So it's going to start to trickle down into other months as it goes along. It also will be impacted by how quickly some of our clients recover. And so that's why I'm out here trying to give as much information as possible. I want every one of my clients to succeed and recover from this, but I am definitely not saying that it's going to be rainbows and unicorns in the next 3 months. Even if we get to the middle of May and they start to lift some of the restrictions, some of my clients they've missed a very important season. Others are going to have had to lay people off. Don't bring them back. They're going to have to start from scratch in a hiring process once they can afford to. And that takes time. It all takes so much time. So I'm hoping to get as much information, to everybody as I can that can help you, understand what's going on and do what's right for you. It's super difficult to say from a business owner who's self-employed and doesn't have any employees. What should you do? Should you claim unemployment? Should you apply for a loan? What should you do? And what I would encourage is start right now, if you haven't already, figured out how you can make money. What else can you do to make money? Because all of these programs are, they're not guaranteed that you're going to get it. 2, unemployment is limited. It's not going to go on forever, and they have extended it, and they are giving an extra $600. But what happens when you get out of it and you haven't been working on your business? You haven't found another way to make some revenue. Then where are you going to be? You're out of unemployment and you have no revenue. You still got to now. You got to make the house payment too. So definitely be considering what else you can do to make money. And that's, and for people who've been self-employed for a long time, I always tell people I would make the worst employee. I've been, this has been a long time. And so it's scary to think, what would I have to do? Would I have to go get a part-time job after being self-employed for so long? It really depends. It really depends on your situation. But what I want you to not do is sit back and do nothing and think, 1, this will just blow over and it won't affect me, or 2, I'm too overwhelmed to do anything. You've got to, figure out what else can you do. Anything. This is going to go longer than we want, and it's already gone longer than we want, and it's going to have an impact. So, let me see what other questions. Let me jump over one more place because I was compiling some that I was getting. Okay, I had one from somebody who has a entity that owns essentially a rental property. So for like a management company, and we recommend all the time that when businesses decide they want to own their own building, that they own that building outside of the actual operating company for multiple reasons. But so one of those things was the person said, well, is there anything that we can do for the rental company, because it doesn't have any employees, and but it could be impacted because your tenants may not be able to pay their rent. And the answer to that is going to be that SBA EIDL loan. And because I keep I'm going to find out what that stands for because it's driving me nuts. I'm looking. Here we go. Oops, wrong button. Okay, so the answer is, and I should know this, I see it, but there's so many acronyms that have come out so quickly for everything. It's like it's alphabet soup most of the time. There we go. It doesn't even tell me what it stands for. All right, so if you guys know what it stands for, let me know. Put it in the comment because I cannot remember for the life of me. So, but that real estate company could apply for that EIDL that has that $10,000 quick funding, and then apply for an SBA loan to help them through this situation. So, okay. So it looks like Becky, I'm seeing some questions coming in, and Becky's asking, as of now, I have not seen that Missouri has changed their forms yet. The guidance is coming this week. I'm assuming they will be posting it. The Department of Labor has guidance that I dug into as far as how to calculate it. The Missouri unemployment is waiting for the additional guidance, which they're expecting this week, so that then they can start accepting applications for self-employed persons. So yes, so that was Gary that was asking about the rental company, and yes, you can apply for the SBA disaster loan. And let's see. Okay, so information as far as what you're going to need on that unemployment application, I don't really know. We don't really have we know the guidance has said that it's going to be based on your net income from your most recently filed tax return, or maybe 2019. It may require 2019. We don't know yet. And what that calculation is going to look like is probably taking that income and figuring out how much that averages per week, subtracting any income that you may have received during their time frame. So if you were still able to earn income in February and part of March, that might have to come off of that number. But then you would be eligible for the $600 a week that they've said. They're hoping that those are going to start going out with the unemployment checks next week. But if you're self-employed and you've never had employees and you never had a requirement to get your own federal ID number, they're going to base everything on your social security number. So you don't have to worry about having to get a TIN. And I'm guessing even for the paycheck protection loans that are going to be coming out and available for applications starting this Friday for self-employed people, that they may have a whole separate form, because there's a lot of things on the current paycheck protection loan application that just pertain to employees. And so they're going to have to change some of that verbiage so that it makes sense to a self-employed person. Because, that application, you only had a few things to answer, and it was ridiculous that you couldn't understand what they were looking for. So it was unfortunate. There should have been a standardized definition of payroll costs that came out before that application was even put into print. So your social security number for self-employed persons is what will act as your taxpayer identification number. So for me, as far as websites that I am constantly checking, I Google Missouri unemployment. And if you're an employee, you're looking under the employee section. If you're an employer, there's a whole section on COVID-19. If you're looking for the COVID-19 frequently asked questions and who it applies to and all those things, you're going to be looking at the employer section, and there's the COVID-19 whole page about it with FAQs and the whole deal. It's most pertinent probably for employees or self-employed persons to be looking at Missouri unemployment. If you're an employer, you are probably looking at Department of Labor a little bit more, because that has more things that apply across the board for how you are implementing some of these new rules, including the sick paid and expanded medical leave act pay. I did have a question come up today that was, hey, I'm under 50 people, so this doesn't apply to me, right? No, that is incorrect. Family Medical Leave Act and Expanded Family Medical Leave Act are different. The Family Medical Leave Act is what was put in place in '93 for covering that for employers that had more than 50 employees. They had to put this in place to cover people's maternity or extended sick leave or any of those things. If you had fewer than 50 employees, that didn't apply to you, so you never had to put that in place. This Expanded Family Medical Leave Act that they passed a week and a half ago, or longer, was that the first one? Might have been 2 weeks ago. That is actually one that says this is different than FMLA. This is only related to the COVID-19. So if you have 50 or fewer employees, or 500 or fewer employees, you have to comply with this. And so there's only one caveat, and that is if you have fewer than 50 employees, and it will hurt your ability to continue operating as a business. Essentially, it will put you out of business. If you have to pay this sick leave, then you have to essentially apply for an exemption for that. I don't think paying the sick leave is going to put too many people out of business because you're credited right there. You don't have to pay anything. You're going to pay the sick leave at either 2 weeks at 100% if this person's sick, 2 weeks at 2/3 if somebody's taking care of someone who is sick, or 12 weeks at 2/3 if someone is staying home with children and can prove that their children are actually home. So once the schools go back, they don't get to keep collecting that. But there is a immediate credit off your 941 taxes that you can take that very week or whenever you pay your 941 taxes that should wipe that out. So what they're trying to do is say, okay, it's not going to impact you financially. How it can impact you is that person a key personnel that you have to hire somebody else to do the job. That's going to become important. If they can't work at all, for the 2 weeks for the sick leave, that's fine. For the family medical leave, the Expanded Family Medical Leave Act for staying home with the kids, that's different. That is absolutely different. Can that person get paid you have to pay them 2/3. Granted, you're getting a credit for it, but who's doing their job? So it can have an impact on what happens to a small business as far as, if you're a small business, you have fewer than 10 people, you don't have somebody on your team that you don't need because you can't afford to. You don't have anybody that's just kind of getting by and you don't really need them there. You need everybody, even your part-time people, or you wouldn't have them. So if you have the luxury of saying, yeah, I don't need that person for 12 weeks, you need to think, did I need them to begin with? If somebody else can do their job. So it's just, there's a lot of things that can impact this. So, just keep that in mind. You are required to pay it if you're under 500 employees. We are putting that in place, and Friday's webinar, we will have some updates on the implementation of that and what that looks like for people who are either processing their own payroll taxes, and what types of reporting is going to be important to have and make sure that it's there so that if you get one of the PPP loans, you can exclude these wages that have to do with the FFCRA rules. So there's so much. I'm feel like I've gone to school every day for the last 3 weeks on top of finishing the busiest part of a tax season and transitioning to work completely at home. So, any one of those things by themselves is a ridiculous amount of work and stress. And to do all three of them at once is a little challenging. So I hope everybody is doing things to, take care of yourselves. Obviously, comply with all of the rules that everybody says. The sooner we comply, the sooner this will be done. Nobody really knows. Keep that in mind. Nobody really knows. We are finally starting to be able to say we're getting some guidance on the legislation that they've been passing, but it is slow. And if you think about it, there's some smart people out there turning this legalese into layman's terms. Even for me, I need that, quick, give me the bullet points. But I did take some time to read through some code to figure out that unemployment, what's the income going to be based on today. And didn't get through all the details, that's for sure. There's so much out there. So again, go to the reliable sources, keep asking the questions. I'll keep trying to answer the questions. Some of them is we don't know yet, but some of them we are slowly getting answers for. Apply for the money you think that you're going to need. Remember, some of it may have to be paid back, and do what you have to do to stay safe. Think about what you can do to make some money in a different fashion if you're impacted that much. And then also just, stay, live in joy. I know it's tough to do that right now, but find some things to be joyful for. Today and yesterday, I am so joyful for the warm weather. I am a summer person, and so bring on the 89 degrees today. I am for it. So, okay, everybody go out and enjoy some sunshine today, and I will, this will be recorded, I'll be downloading it, and I'll have it on my YouTube site as well. So, webinar is Friday at 1 p.m. with all the updates, so join me then. Thanks.